What's up, friends? I'm LK and welcome to Gear and Go. I'm going to separate the big three of backpacking into three different budget ranges for you guys. One, lower budget, under $500. Two, little bit of a mid-range, under $1,000. And finally, what I would buy if I had an unlimited budget for the big three. So without further ado, let's jump in. And as a quick note, this video is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form, and any products I recommend are ones that I'm recommending of my own volition. So let's get started. Alright, so if you're newer to backpacking and you are unfamiliar with what we call the big three, this refers to your tent or whatever shelter type you're choosing, the backpack you are using, very important, and of course your warmth layer. So think sleeping pad or a quilt, sleeping bag, all of that good stuff. So let's start with the first budget tier, under $500. And a quick side note on this, it is absolutely possible to get all these big three items for way less than $500. The reason I'm choosing $500 is because if you have tried backpacking a couple times, you know you'd like to invest in it. Maybe you've borrowed from friends, maybe you've rented a couple times, and you are ready to have some investment pieces that will last you multiple seasons and multiple harder core trips. That's kind of the target audience I'm going for here. So think of this as your first real setup where you're investing and you're hoping that these pieces will last you a good amount of time and be reliable long-term choices. Also, as a general note, of course, the best way to save money on any of these items is by buying used, which I have done for several things that I have, including but certainly not limited to my backpacks. However, this video is going to assume that you've looked for used items or that you are just looking at new items for whatever reason. Maybe you want to scout it out and choose before you try to buy used, or maybe you just want to buy brand new. I'm going to use the REI website exclusively today just for ease of use, but of course feel free to look all over the internet and at local outdoor stores near you. Alright, let's get started. Ooh, I love this. Okay, so to start with our under $500 tier. $500 is certainly not a small amount of money. However, it is really important to be strategic with what you are investing your money into. For example, a backpack really needs to be comfortable, and the price might vary depending on what model suits you best. It's really good to get fitted by a professional like someone at REI or your local outdoor store, because they can tell you how something is fitting you and can give you an idea of whether or not it will be comfortable and healthy for your back and shoulders. However, things like a tent might be a bit more universal. Something that works for your friend might also work for you in this case. And kind of the same with a sleeping bag, although that can be a bit of a personal discussion as well. Everyone sleeps differently, so it's important to start getting to know yourself, and that's why it's really good to rent or borrow for the first few times you go backpacking or camping to understand what you like and what you dislike. Let's jump into some choices I have made. For a tent in this under $500 category, I tried to really keep it around $100, $150, and I eliminated one-person tents for this sake of this thought experiment, and there's a couple reasons for that. First, a lot of times when you're going backpacking or camping, you're probably doing it with another person. It's a lot more fun that way, at least in my opinion, so it's good to have the extra space for a second person if you find yourself in that scenario. Plus, if you are a couple or married or just friends who like to go backpacking together, you can probably split the cost of a tent, which is always nice. Additionally, if you are sleeping by yourself in the tent, it gives you more space for your stuff to get laid out. You can hang socks to dry if you need to, or just stretch your legs. So the tent I have chosen for this first lower tier is the Mountainsmith Bear Creek 2 tent with footprint. So if you're unfamiliar, the footprint protects the bottom of the tent from getting scraped or ripped by rocks or tree branches, whatever else might be in the ground on the location that you're placing your tent. The reason I chose this tent is that it has many features that some of the more expensive backpacking tents have, like the rain fly, the included footprint, a gear loop for your lamp and light at the top, interior pockets, and it comes in at a weight of 4 pounds 3 ounces minimum trail weight, which for a $150 tent is pretty good. If you are just getting into backpacking, there's really no reason to concern yourself with ounces and grams of saved weight. The big three will be your heaviest items normally, but 4 pounds, 3 ounces, it's not bad, especially for, like I said, a $150 tent. Additionally, this tent gets pretty good reviews given the price point, and it seems like it holds up pretty well in the rain and in the wind. Now let's move on to the sleep system that I have come up with for the lower tier budget. Again, I wanted to keep the sleep system to about $100 just to give us some extra wiggle room. And if you are going backpacking for the first few times, I'm going to assume you are not going in below freezing weather and most likely going in the spring, summer, fall when temperatures are a bit warmer at night. Of course, as a caveat, if you know you will be outside overnight in colder weather, please make sure to get an appropriately rated sleeping pad and sleeping bag to keep yourself safe and prevent any risks of cold damage and hypothermia. That being said, the bag I selected for this tier is the Kelty Katina 30 sleeping bag. It's described as practical and affordable, and from reading the description, seems just like it. It's a synthetic bag, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually nice. It can get wet and withstand the wet a little better. Additionally, if you are a couple, you have two of them, you can zip the sides together and use it as a blanket or as a double sleeping bag, which is nice to keep yourself warm and use that extra body heat. The weight of this bag comes in at 3 pounds 15 ounces, so just under 4 pounds, which again is on the heavier side for backpacking, but is a fantastic starting point for a sleeping bag, and for $50 you really can't beat it. Another crucial part of your sleep system and staying warm and comfortable on trail is a sleeping pad for underneath your sleeping bag. This can be a hard sell closed foam pad, or it can be something like an inflatable pad, whether self-inflatable or pump inflated. For this tier, I have selected a closed cell foam pad, as those tend to be a bit cheaper than inflatable ones and still can offer comfort and warmth, which is nice. I know a lot of people who have been backpacking for years and still choose to use closed cell foam pads as opposed to inflatable ones. The pad that I've selected here is the Exped Flex Mat Sleeping Pad. It's quick and easy. You can stow it on the outside of your bag. It comes in two lengths, medium and long wide, and both come in weighing around a pound. The medium is 12.3 ounces and the long wide is 1 pound and essentially 1 ounce. This is a 0.7 inch thick pad, which is pretty good and has an R value of 1.5, meaning that while you don't want to use it in extreme cold or even nights when it dips below freezing, it will offer you some insulation and warmth from the ground. Certainly better than nothing and helps keep you off the ground a little bit more. Now let's talk about a backpack. I am going to caveat this entire discussion on backpacks with it is really important to have a properly fitting backpack. If you do not know how to do this yourself, there's no shame in that, but definitely watch some YouTube videos and get someone familiar with backpacks and how they should fit, like an employee at an outdoor store, to help you get fitted and find the right one. Here's what I did for my backpacks. To save a little bit of money off retail price, I went and tried on several different backpacks at my local REI and tried to fit each one to my body and see how they felt, especially packed up. Then, once I knew which one I wanted, I didn't buy it that day, but I did keep going back looking at the used section both in REI, online at REI, on Facebook Marketplace, you get the idea, and eventually found the exact backpack I wanted in a used version. It was very lightly used, but I saved almost $100 off the retail price. So this is what I would recommend to stay in your budget. But that being said, let's look at some new backpacks for the sake of argument and for the sake of this thought experiment. Recognized brands are usually popular for a reason. Things like Osprey, Deuter, Gregory, brands like that, but do not sleep on local brands or maybe ones that just fly a little bit under the radar, because this might be the perfect backpack for you. Definitely, if we're looking at REI, think about REI's in-house brand, the REI Co-op brand. The Trailmade 60 pack, for example, is only $180. And with 60 liters, that is certainly the largest you would need for a couple of overnights. If you wanted a smaller pack, you could go with the REI Flash 55 coming in at 200, or even the Gregory 44 for 210. And the reason that I'm pointing out several specific bags is just to give you an idea of what a backpack of the size somewhere between 45 and 60 liters will cost you. It's hard to get a backpack that is new and fits you well for under $200 that will be sturdy and hold up to whatever weight you might put in it and the miles that you're going to put on it, as well as be healthy and comfortable for your back and your shoulders. However, if you shop used, you can certainly find these for half price or even on sale throughout the year, especially around Memorial Day, Black Friday. You get the idea. So definitely figure out what works for you first and then try to find it for a lower price point as a great way to save money. So that wraps up this discussion on the under $500 backpacking big 3 budget. And we're coming in here around $400 to $500. So definitely under budget for the big 3, which is fantastic. Now, again, if you can find any of these things used or on sale, absolutely take advantage of that. Be sure to watch all the sales on your favorite websites like REI, Backcountry, all the others that you know, and your local stores as well, so that you can support them. Now I want to talk about if we have a little more wiggle room in this budget and we can go up to $1,000. Let's get started with number 1, the tent. The tent I have selected for this tier is the Nemo Hornet Osmo Ultralight 2-person tent. This tent is quite the upgrade from that Mountainsmith one, and I think you'll notice it. It is far lighter, has several creature comforts included, and takes up less space in your bag, which is really important if you're trying to save weight and space. So let's take a look at some of the details of this tent. Coming in at a minimum trail weight of 2 pounds 1 ounce. That is half the size, half the weight of the tent from the lower tier. Your tent is a huge piece of your overall base weight of your backpack, so if you have the ability to invest in one that is lighter, you will feel a difference. This tent does include the Rainfly, which is fantastic. It does not, however, include the Footprint, which will run you another $70 or $80 depending on the exact model that you buy. So the tent total comes in about $500 new. Now again, if you can find this on sale or used, please do that. Paying $500 out of pocket for a tent is a hard bullet to bite, but you will feel the difference in the weight and just the usability and the comfort of the tent. A couple small things to note about this tent: it has nice gear pockets, a little loop for your lantern overhead, and a couple of doors on it with reinforced zippers that will withstand lots of wear and tear. It's a very highly rated tent, as you will see if you scroll through reviews, and also looks cool. I did want to give one more tent alternative for this tier though. If you're choosing to upgrade other items in the big 3 and you do not want to spend as much on a tent, I do have an alternative tent for you. The alternative tent is the Nemo Aurora 2 backpacking tent with Footprint and Rainfly included. It comes in at $300 even and comes in at a weight of only 4 pounds 11 ounces. So while you aren't saving much weight from the $150 tent, you are gaining reliability and the ability to withstand more weather and more wear and tear. So this tent will last you longer, and I believe it does include a bit more space. Now let's move on to the sleep system. So one thing that could be a good choice of investment going from a lower tier to more of a mid-range tier sleeping bag is one that is rated for lower temperatures. This can still be synthetic or it can be down. The one I've selected is still synthetic. It is the North Face Cat's Meow 20 Eco Sleeping Bag. So this gets you another 10 degrees of warmth, which can be really nice and noticeable, especially in these shoulder seasons, the spring and the fall, at night it can get really chilly. And additionally, the shape of this tent is more like the human body, so it's going to minimize dead space and help keep your warmth and your air in. This sleeping bag does come in 3 different sizes, and the price and weight might fluctuate a little bit depending on which size you choose, but I'm going to give the details for the standard size. This guy weighs in at 2 pounds, 12 ounces, so a bit lighter and definitely can compress a bit more and take up less space than the previous sleeping bag we discussed. It gets fantastic reviews for 3 seasons, so definitely think about giving this bag a try. More importantly in this category though, for our sleep system, I would argue is the sleeping pad situation. A lot of backpackers I know use both a closed cell foam pad and an insulated inflatable pad on top. So using 2 pads for both warmth, insulation from the ground, and comfort. So first I've selected the Nemo Switchback Sleeping Pad as our closed cell pad. This one gets slightly better ratings for temperature and comfort than the previous sleeping pad we discussed, though there's nothing wrong with that one. And this one comes in at $50 or $60 depending on which size you get. It weighs between 10 and 15 ounces depending on which size you get, and is an inch thickness, so a little bit thicker, adds a little bit more comfort without adding too much more weight. And then on top we will have the Big Agnes Divide Insulated Sleeping Pad. This is about $120 or $150 depending on if you get a standard width or an extra wide pad. There's also a double, so if you are a couple and you would like to share one sleeping pad, or you just want one sleeping pad to cover the entirety of your 2-person tent, you can get the double, which comes in at $250. This pad is comfy. It is 3¼ inches thick and has a slightly larger outer edge to keep you from rolling off in the middle of the night. It has an R value of 4, meaning that it is a solid 3-season pad and will keep you warm. The weight of the regular and the standard width pad comes in at 1 pound 7 ounces, so not too bad. And for inflating it, there are a variety of methods and devices you can use. Feel free to look those up. And finally, as far as backpacks go, we have a bit more wiggle room with this category, but my earlier statements still stand. The price of the backpack does not necessarily indicate anything about its reliability, its comfort, or the way that it fits against your body. However, now that you have a bit more of a budget, maybe $200, $300, you can definitely look at some of the more well-known and common backpacking bags like the Gregory series, Mammoth, Deuter, and others. All right, and finally, just for fun, let's think about what my big 3 would be if I had an unlimited budget for it. Now, I'm gonna preface by saying I have not spent this much money on my big 3, but a girl can dream. The tent I would choose if I had an unlimited budget is the Copper Spur Ultralight 2 tent by Big Agnes. This does include the Rainfly. It does not include the footprint, which is another $80 on top of it. The tent itself is $550 full price, although I have seen it go on sale multiple times a year for far beneath that. The reason that I chose this tent is because it gets fantastic reviews. People love how reliable it is. It lasts them a long time and many, many nights on trail. Stands up to the rain, the cold, the wind, and any other elements you might encounter. And it weighs only 2 pounds 10 ounces. So you will definitely feel a difference between this tent and that initial 4-pound one that we discussed back in tier number 1. Finally, for the backpack, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but it's the same deal. Find the backpack that works for you, except that in this tier, you don't have to worry about how much it costs, only the comfort, the size you need, and the way it fits your body. And then for the sleep system, I would say, again, just find what works for you. For a sleeping bag, you can invest in a really nice down bag that will keep you warm down to 0 degrees or whatever temperature rating you need. And then for the sleeping pad, you can, of course, do some combination of closed cell foam, inflatable, one or the other, both, whatever your heart desires. Thanks so much for joining me today as I talked about the big 3 in backpacking: your tent, your sleep system, and your backpack. I hope that you got some value out of this video and some new products to go check out. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and think about subscribing. Really helps the channel grow, and I'm excited to provide more high quality content on gear reviews and adventures for you guys. Until next time, see you later.